Hi students, in this video we are going to see some important spotter questions. Number 1, we are going to see in this specimen frontal air sinus. Look at this is a frontal air sinus. The frontal air sinus, usually we ask this, where does it open? So frontal air sinus opens into the middle meatus through this part is called infundibulum of the middle meatus. So it comes and opens into the infundibulum, sometimes to the anterior end of the hiatus semilunaris. So via infundibulum it opens into the hiatus semilunaris. You have a duct in this area that is called frontonasal duct. So frontal air sinus, frontonasal duct, infundibulum, anterior part of the hiatus semilunaris. Hiatus is a groove present below the bulla ethmodalis. Number 5 is the spotter called bulla. Bulla means bulge. It is formed by the underlying middle ethmoidal air cells. The middle ethmoidal air cells, they open on the surface of the bulla. It means at the area where the 5 is written. And then the second spotter is, and number 1 frontal air sinus. Nerve supply we used to ask. So nerve supply means this, since it is lying near the orbit, the nerve supply is supraorbital nerve, right? Supraorbital nerve, over. Then second spotter is, we put a probe beneath the inferior concha, that is called inferior meatus. So the question is, identify the probed space. So you will be writing as inferior meatus. Then second sub question is, what structure opens into it? What is the structure opens into it? That is your nasolacrimal duct. Can you see that it opens into it, over. So spotter number 1, spotter number 2 and spotter number 3, they will put a probe inside the middle meatus and they will be asking you what structures opens into the middle meatus. So what are the structures open into the middle meatus? Number 1 is bulla. Bulla, you have the middle ethmoidal air cells. Beneath the bulla you have a groove that is called as hiatus. In the anterior end of the hiatus you have the frontal as well as the anterior ethmoidal air cells. In the posterior end of the hiatus you have the maxillary air cells. They took open into that. So that's all about the middle meatus. Then next slide we are going to see the sphenoidal. Look at this. This is the sphenoidal air sinus. This is also a very important spotter. Sphenoidal opens where? Sphenoidal air sinus opens into the supreme meatus. It means above the superior concha you have something called a supreme meatus through some recess called sphenoethmoidal recess. This bone is called as ethmoidal bone. These two concha are the projections from the ethmoid bone and the inferior concha is a separate bone. So it opens through the sphenoethmoidal recess. Nerve supply is just behind that you have the pterygopalatine ganglion. So the branches from the pterygopalatine ganglion and the posterior ethmoidal. This is ethmoid, right? So don't write the anterior ethmoidal, posterior ethmoidal nerve as well as the pterygopalatine ganglion branches, nasal branches of pterygopalatine ganglion. That's all about this spotter. Next 3 is, this is a scalp specimen. So in the scalp specimen we will be asking, we will color the anterior part of the scalp, we will color it and then we will be asking you identify the colored part, give its nerve supply. So the colored part is anterior half of the scalp. The nerve supply are supraorbital, supratrochlear, supraorbital and zygomaticotemporal and auriculotemporal. These are the anterior part nerves. The same thing, posterior half is colored. You have to write posterior part of the scalp nerves are lesser occipital, greater occipital and third occipital. These are the nerves behind. Understood? Then the same thing, if arterial supply is asked, you have to write supratrochlear, supraorbital, superficial temporal. Instead of auriculotemporal, the artery name is superficial temporal artery, right? This is on the anterior half. Say like this, posterior half is asked, you have to write as posterior auricular and occipital. This is about the blood supply, over. Then many students, they get confused with the lateral wall of the nose, bones forming the lateral wall. Medial wall of the nose, it's very easy. Lateral wall of the nose, bones forming, we will be asking you in the viva. That time you should know the bones forming the lateral wall of the nose. Look at this specimen, it is very easy to remember. So this is your maxilla, right? So this is anterior part, you have the maxilla and here is your palate. So maxilla, perpendicular plate of the palatine bone and this is your ethmoid. So all these bones, they form the lateral wall of the nose. Very good. So maxilla, perpendicular plate of the palatine bone and this is the ethmoid. Okay. So this uncinate process of the ethmoid only forms the hiatus semilunaris. These projections are called as uncinate process of the ethmoid. So if somebody asked you about the bones forming the lateral wall of the nose, you should write as maxilla, perpendicular plate of palatine bone, and ethmoidal bone. These are the bones you are supposed to write, right? Okay. So these are the bones you are supposed to write. So superior and middle concha are the parts of ethmoid bone, and inferior concha is a separate bone. And the next one is this, we will see in the next video.